relationship, I'll struggle financially. If I take that job, um, I might miss out on another opportunity. See, those are all assumptions that we make, and we can strong arm ourselves into a life of pain and regret and misery by assuming that the next step is going to be the one that's going to take us off the cliff. Why not shift that perspective and have um, the ability to flow and to pivot and know that, you know, wherever you end up, it's an opportunity to grow. We make assumptions a lot of times about um, relationships. We make assumptions about jobs. We make assumptions about people.
Ooh.
I mean, how many times have we passed somebody on the street and just assumed that they were um, homeless because of a drug addiction, or on drugs, or I mean, I can't tell you how many people in just recent on social media, the negativity of people. I have read a few things and then I just got off of it. Some articles out around, Lisa Marie transitioned last
No.
week. And
Mhm.
so I can't tell you how many people assumed that she was, well, she's on drugs, or she's doing this, or she's doing that, or she's grieving herself, or she's, we're not in her head. We're not in her heart
Right.
space. It is not our place. Hold space for someone and pray for them, but don't make assumptions like we know what's going on with somebody else. If you know them personally and you can ask, that's one thing, but otherwise, don't do it.
Mhm.
Or assuming that people are mad at you. Well, you're not talking to me, I assumed you were mad. Maybe they're busy. Maybe you
Oh,
are a jerk and they just don't want to talk to you, but maybe they're busy.
I actually had somebody, and people compliment me on my smile now, but I don't think they realize how I've worked to cultivate the conscious effort to smile. And when I say that, my RBF, my resting face, is it looks like I'm angry when I'm thinking or I'm trying to concentrate. I do have ADHD, and concentration is I have to work on that because I can be all over the roadmap. I can
Mm,
start 25 different stories and never finish
mm,
any of them and think in my mind that I have. So let's look at that. So my concentration face looks very angry. So what I had to do is put a lot of effort. I said, you know what? I don't want people to assume I'm angry because they were. In fact, some people said, you really hurt my feelings because you didn't like my idea. And I said, what idea? I had not even
mm,
heard it. I was so busy trying to concentrate on the first thing that they said that I missed the total second part. So the conscious effort to smile and to say, would
mm-hmm,
you repeat that? Because I went on a little mental vacation.
mm-hmm,
I I have to go, this is who I am, and I have to really try really hard, especially with what I do every day. So I write a lot of notes. And
mm,
people will my shows, they say, you look down and I said, I'm writing a note because if I don't, I may go to Okmulgee, Oklahoma for a moment and just see the cows. I don't know.
mm-hmm.
So don't make assumptions that someone is angry with you. Um,
Right.
I laugh. I got a funny story about making an assumption. I was doing some ministry in this little church, and there was this little old lady in the back. And I'm very open and honest about where I've been and what God has brought me through. And I was doing it. She had this look on her face like, whew. And I said, man, she is too old to understand anything I've been through. And she's thinking to me, what a sinner, and how is she in our church? And blah. I had this whole narrative about this woman judging me. And her daughter came up to me and she says, Mama, really loved what you said. Man, she said she's the first honest person I've seen in a long time since I got off the pole. And I said, come again? Her mother had been a stripper back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how she paid her kids way through. And I never think about someone who is near 80 at one time being a stripper, but
Right.
she was. But she was, and she was there looking, go, mm-hmm. That's right. I've been judged in church, and she's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I laughed about that for what every time I think about making assumptions, because here I am thinking she's being a church lady, and well, even church ladies can have a past.
Right. Right. Yeah, and depending on, that's one of the things, like a lot of times we do get lost in our expression, but some people make faces when they're listening and they
Mm-hmm.
don't, that something triggers with them and they're like, mm, mm. And they're not saying you're wrong or you're ugly or you don't make sense or what you're saying is cockahooey. What they're doing is they're going inside their own brain space and it's resonating with them, and they're listening and things are tracking and clicking and dots are connecting. And so some people, like you're talking about the RBF, some people, they get in their head and it's not that they're not listening, they are listening, but they have their own narrative going, not about you, but about what they have done,
Yeah.
or
What sometimes what button are you pushing in their mind or in their experience, or trigger is another word that is used. Sometimes you trigger something in their emotion space that you aren't aware of,
right. Sure.
you
And you
know.
can't assume that, I mean, like a lot of times we have, I mean, I can't tell you how many people will say, well, this person is grieving or this is going on in this person's life. And, I just need to go help them. And I'm like, well, have you asked them if they want help? Well, no, I'm just assuming they won't help. And I'm like, mm, you should probably check in with them and ask.
Mhm.
There's one thing about sending food to someone or helping someone. I remember specifically one time my daughter and I were going into Walmart, and there was a young couple sitting on the side of the road and they had two dogs with them, and they had a sign that said, they were taking donations. And this was probably, gosh, Callie will be 30 next Saturday. And this was probably when she was about 12, maybe.
Mhm.
And my first assumption was they're not taking care of those dogs and they are out just, collecting money, and I hate this. But I went into Walmart and I didn't even buy my groceries. I bought all kinds of stuff for these two kids and these two dogs. And when I got back, I stopped and I, flagged him down and I said, hey, I have some things for you. And I walked up there with flea and tick medication and food and dog treats and toys and people food and all kinds of stuff, with my whole narrative that I had going, that I was going to whoosh in and I was going to save these people and I was going to do something good. I'm going to do something good because these poor people. Well, let me just tell you, both of these individuals were college graduates. They had both resigned from their jobs, and they were actually um, incredibly brilliant. And one was a PhD student, and they were going cross country. They had family in Pennsylvania, and they were actually working their way back up to Pennsylvania before the weather turned. And one of the dogs, Cowboy was his name, Cowboy stepped over a duffel bag that they had, and I heard all these squeakies, and the guy opened up the duffel bag and there was heart guard, and there was flea and tick, and there were leashes and everything. I had made an assumption that these two kids, bless their hearts, um, were just
Mhm.
destitute and just horrible to these little pups that were with
Mhm.
them, which in fact was wrong. And I sat down at the side on Powell Avenue in between CarMax and Walmart, sat there on the grass with them for about 30, 45 minutes and talked about life. We talked about all kinds of stuff, played with the dogs. I
Oh.
mean, it was one of the most enriching experiences I had ever had. And I learned
Mhm.
in that moment, don't judge that book by the cover. Don't
Mhm.
do it because it might just surprise you. And it says more about us than it does
Mhm.
about the other person ever.
I'm gonna throw Mama Pat under the bus. I love my mother with all my heart, but she's got a very vivid imagination. That had she decided to be a reporter or
Mm.
an author, she would have kicked butt. She just never did it. But she comes up with these. I mean, she can size somebody up across a parking lot, and she has a whole story, a narrative about them. I mean, she says, "Well, I tell you what that looks like." And she was like, "Yeah, well, I bet he's husband number 2 or 3. I bet both those babies are not his. I bet he has come in there, and I bet, well, you see how young she is, and it might be the girl's dad and is taking his grandkids out. I mean, she'll have a whole different narrative. And I said, Mom, why don't you just write stories? You just enjoy this so much, because some people really enjoy making assumptions. But I always say, if that is your modus operandi, turn it into something positive, write it down and make a story up. you
Mm-hmm.
know
Absolutely. Absolutely. Assumptions, when we get on the assumption train, it becomes very easy. Assumptions is just another kind of soft and gentler word than judging. you know
yeah.
it's a very easy and nondescript way of saying, well, I am not judging, but I would bet. And then we go into it, and we can make assumptions in our own head. We can limit ourselves so many ways in our own head, assuming that we can't um, make a team playing sports, assuming that we can't write a book, assuming that we can't even be on time. Sometimes I work with
Hmm.
people all the time that are like, oh, well, I just can't. I just procrastinate. I procrastinate all the time. And I'm like, well, what can you do about that? First off, do you want to do something about it? And secondly, if you don't, that's fine. Just own up to it.
Hmm.
And the assumptions that we make about ourselves are so limiting and so detrimental
Hmm.
to our own. I'm going to be 50 years old. I can't do that. I work with somebody who was like, well, I'm going to retire in at least 12 more years. And I think when I retire, then I'm going to go travel and I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I was like, well, can you
Hmm.
work in any of those trips during the summer in between now and the next 12 years? Well, no, Lord, I can't do that. I just can't do that. And I just hope when I retire, I don't die. And I was like, well, I'd be traveling now then. If I had any inkling in my mind that I was going to take on my retirement and die right after I retired, my ass would be out there on the roads burning it up right now. So don't make assumptions that limit us. And also don't make assumptions that limit others, because assumptions are, um, they are, well, they're limiting. They stop potential. They stop growth. They stop a lot of stuff from happening because we get in our head about it. We start judging, assuming, and then that goes back to, we're taking something personal that we're saying about ourselves, and we're not being impeccable with our word. They all feed
I
into
love
one
how
another.
I love how all of these agreements layer onto each other,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Mm-hmm.
literally, it's a four-legged table. You take out one and the
Mm-hmm.
table falls.
Right.
It's unsturdy. And to be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions. We are really creating a foundation for improving life, enjoying life. That's another thing, is we take the joy factor out of life, and success is sometimes measured in the numbers, in the
Mm-hmm.
number of people, the number of things you've accomplished, in the um, numbers in your
Number
bank
of
account.
likes.
Oh,
The number
yes.
of likes, the number of followers, the number of friends. We assume that we're not worthy, good, successful, uh, purpose driven if we don't have what sometimes other people, that's a priority for other people. It doesn't have to be a priority for you.
Yeah, that thing I posted didn't get very many likes. It must not have been very good. How much do we make those assumptions? It could have been when it got posted, it could have been just that it didn't get on somebody else's feed. It just
And it could have been that
literally,
it wasn't good.
it could have been, could have
you
been
know
something somebody didn't resonate with, but doesn't mean it
yeah,
wasn't good for you. If we
absolutely.
share something and we go, I really liked this. Well, if you really liked it, we have to separate ourselves from the assumption that other people validate it as something worth liking.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely.
I know firsthand that I have pretty much my favorite thing at a gazillion different restaurants in town has always removed from the menu. If it becomes my favorite thing, I better order it when I get it, and order as many times, because about third time into that restaurant, it's not going to be there because I was the only one who liked it. That's okay. I'm good with that. It doesn't mean it wasn't a good thing. It just means I was the one who resonated with it, you
Sure.
know? And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be an original and to not have the taste that goes across the masses. You might be the person who likes peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwiches, you know, that might be your thing. It's okay. Nobody has to, you don't judge your own likes and stuff by everybody else. It's okay to be very original.
Yeah, and and that's the thing, is it's okay also to let other people be original. It's
Yeah.
okay to allow other people to be who they are, and show up how they are. Now, obviously, we make, I mean, again, we in our society make assumptions all the time. We assume all sorts of, not only assumptions we assume outright, but roles that we assume. We will assume that if someone, um,
Hmm.
as we said earlier, hasn't spoken to us, then they must be mad at us. We assume if someone is quiet around us, then they're mad about something. We assume that if we're going in for a colonoscopy, oh Lord, what if I had cancer? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we put out there. We put it out there active as though it is, um, part of our story, part of our narrative. It doesn't have to
Right.
be. Does not have to be. We have to be mindful every day that we are cognizant of the narrative. We might have people that have, um, sketched in things for us along the life. We've had people take our journal and, drop some things in here and drop some things in there, but ultimately we're the author of our life. So we get to go back and edit that. We get to take out those things that don't work, and we get to put in the things that do work for us. And
Amen.
and not making assumptions that just because someone else thinks that we fall short or that we are whatever, um that is, a good, bad, or indifferent. We can have people make assumptions all the time. Well, I assume that I had somebody tell me one time when they were talking to me, they assumed that I was at the same level Brene Brown was. And I thought to myself, I wish. But, it was that thing where, the assumption was no, I answer my phone when people call. And if they book an appointment with me, I'm the one that books it, and I'm the one that meets them. Um, and people can see that in lots of different ways. It's either you're not successful enough, or you're too successful and you want to control things. And it's like, neither one of those are true. I just
Hmm.
enjoy people, you
Amen.
know.
Amen.
So,
Well, speaking of enjoying people, we are pre-taping this because
mhm.
Terry and I are celebrating my birthday. And I just wanted to tell you, we talk about it all the time about putting yourself in your own calendar, in your
Yes.
own calendar. And so we normally are very much more interactive with you guys being part, but make sure that if you are watching this, that you put your comments in the comments wherever you're watching this, because we do take those in and we do go back and read them and try to answer and respond. Terry is really great about it. She goes back in and responds, and um, we love to have this interaction time. So a shout out to our regulars who are here, Leslie and Elizabeth and Steve and Candy. And there's always, you guys are always here with what we do. Corinne, who joins us as well, and
Mhm.
Angie. And if I forget your name and you're one of our regulars, forgive me,
We
because
got Nicole and Suzanne and,
mhm.
um yeah, a lot of folks. I feel like we're on Romper Room now. If I had a little mirror, and in my mirror I see, because you remember Romper Room when they had that little mirror out and you could
I
see
tell you,
everybody.
that's what our shows are like. I call it the adult romper room because I love it. I mean, because we all want to be seen and all want to be heard. Uh, and, and if we missed your name, it's not because we don't love you. It's because, I have ADHD and I won't put it on that because what?
No, we're not assuming that at all. We're not assuming that at all.
No,
But
well,
we
I'm
are
all over the
saying,
roadmap.
go back to what we have talked about. And if we've missed your name, don't take it personal and don't assume that we don't, that we've forgotten about you, because we are really working on being impeccable with our words. So, and
Hey, look
also
at
next
you.
week, I know, right? And next week we'll be talking about doing our best, and all of those fall in there together. It's just a sweet combination of ingredients that make a really yummy life if we allow it to.
Hmm.
And I get it. They're not always super easy, because we can be triggered at any given time, and we can say things that aren't great, and we can be accountable, and we can do things, you take things personal, and then we can be accountable, and we can make
Right.
assumptions, and then we can be accountable. And some days in the making, the always doing our best, and you'll hear me say this when we do our show next week. I know you will, because I say it often. Some days you're going to hit the bullseye, and other days you're going to miss the whole stinking board. And both of those are okay, because if you're doing
Hmm.
your best, you're doing your best. And our best changes with every experience that we have. So,
I was talking to someone this week and they said, to be quite honest, I didn't even call you. And I said, why? She goes, I didn't even get out of my pajamas all day long. And I said, well, neither did I. And they go, what? What? I said, look at me being all productive. I can, if I might even wrap up and go to Walmart in my pajamas and be one of those people that they put on the website. I don't care. You know,
mhm.
it's, I'm not going to judge you. Uh, and if you think I have it all together, don't make that assumption either, because we're all just people trying to make a difference in our own lives and in other people's lives. Truly, that is all we are. And
It is true.
and people will judge themselves so harshly, and I love that. Don't make assumptions.
Mhm.
I'm not further along. I'm not further along. I grant it. If you put down on a piece of paper, if you everyone writes their own memoir. I encourage everybody, try to write your own memoir and just start with your milestones in your life, then a
Right.
funny memory associated with each milestone. It's amazing how you go, wow, I've done a lot of stuff.
Hmm. Well, just like this weekend at our reboot boot camp, we wrote a song. Like, just
Uh-huh.
from the things that we talked about that day, you had jotted down. You asked everybody to give input. Everybody gave input, and I'm not kidding you. That song was amazing. I mean, you started singing that, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I absolutely love this. So it was brilliant,
I
brilliant.
woke up with it in my head this morning. So I go, well, it stayed with me enough to do it. And I'm working on giving you all a tape of it. I mean, an audio file of it. And because I go, wow, we can be creative and we can start putting things into the world it helps us learn it. If we set it to music, if we write it down, if we do those things. So I encourage you every day to look at the Four Agreements. It's a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. If you haven't read it, or if you haven't listened to it via audiobook, do, because it's really special. It's not long. It's not a long book, but it's certainly very, if you use these things, it will make a difference in your life, won't it?
It absolutely will. I tell folks, it's when I say easy read, I don't mean that, we have to have things easy, but it really is easy to comprehend it. It's easy to listen to it. I suggest that people actually find it on an audiobook and
Mm-hmm.
listen to it, because there's a form of self-care in there, and it's very nurturing to have someone read to you, and then you can just drive and listen, or sit and listen, or lay and listen, and you can make notes, and you can just, there's something about having it gifted to you verbally, where the brain receives it just a little differently. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a great book. I mean, I go
Mm-hmm.
to McKay's, and if I'm not buying it off of Amazon, I should be getting royalties at this point, because I've suggested to so many people. But if you're not buying it off of Amazon, I'm going to McKay's bookstore, which, if you're from the Nashville area, you're familiar with that. It's like a Walmart sized bookstore, and it is just delicious to go in there. um, and I buy it and I gift it constantly. I'm constantly gifting it to people because it truly is a book that, people say, well, I don't have time to read. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, if you've got time to make assumptions, if you've got time to take things personal, if you've got times to say things that you don't really mean, then you have time to read this book because it's not a long book. It is a really empowering book. And a lot of times people don't take the time because
Mm-hmm.
then they know there's some accountability in that.
Ah,
Now that I've done this, now I can't unhear this or unsee this. And now, well, I got to hold myself accountable. Well, that's part of the beautiful growth of life,
it really
is the
is.
accountability.
Well, I say every week, if you want to get in touch with me, devinoday@gmail.com. And if you want to reach out to Terry about her vision boarding event coming up, Terry@terrypugh.com, send her an email. And Terry, you
Mm-hmm.
want to take us home?
I sure will. Again, as always, we appreciate each and every one of you choosing to spend your afternoon with us, and we appreciate your input. And yes, we're not here today with you, but leave your comments and we will get back with you about them. If you have topics you want to unpack, let us know and we'll put it there. If you have things you want to learn more about, let us know and we'll do that as well. And until we see you again next week, live and in person, we want you to increase your peace and have a great day. See ya.
Amen. Hallelujah. It's my birthday. And so we're going to be having some
Whoop, whoop,
sushi.
whoop.
And some people say, what can I do? There's a little shelter. I said, take it home. And here I am just jumping right back in there. But there's a shelter called New Leash on Life. And they do amazing spay
Mm.
neuter programs. And because out in Putnam County, they've canceled. So this little organization at the Joy Clinic is doing low cost spay, neuters, and vet care for even outside the area. So they need your help. So every little bit, if you want to go to my Facebook page, you can just leave a contribution there. Thank you to all you guys who've given. I just thought I'd just put it up there just to get a little out there. And that $200 goal was met and then increased. And so thank you guys. God bless you. And like Terry said, increase the peace.